The aroma of fresh herbs and roasted vegetables wafted through the warm summer air as Olivia Mitchell wiped the perspiration from her brow. Her farm-to-table dinner series, Harvest Gatherings, had grown from an impulsive idea to a sought-after monthly event in just 1 year. Tonight marked her 12th dinner, and as she arranged wildflowers in mason jars across the long wooden table set up in her restored barn, she couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. "Liv, the beets are done. Should I start on the goat cheese crostini?" Called her best friend and Sue's chef for the evening, Maya. "Perfect timing. I'll finish setting the table," Olivia called back, smoothing the crisp linen tablecloth that stretched down the center of the communal table. The golden hour sunlight streamed through the barn's open doors, casting a honeyed glow over her carefully arranged settings. 24 guests would arrive within the hour, most of them regulars who had been coming since her first nervous attempt at hosting. Olivia had never intended to become an event host. 3 years ago, she'd abandoned her stressful marketing career in Chicago to take over her grandparents' struggling 10-acre farm. Everyone thought she was having a quarter-life crisis. Maybe she had been, but the moment she'd started working the land, something inside her had clicked into place. Her phone buzzed with a notification. 2 cancellations for tonight. Olivia sighed but quickly shook off her disappointment. Last-minute cancellations were part of the business. At least they'd had the courtesy to let her know. "Hey, we've got 2 empty seats tonight," she told Meyer as she joined her in the outdoor kitchen area they'd set up. "I was hoping for a full house for our 1-year anniversary dinner." "Don't worry," Maya reassured her, sliding the crostini into the wood-fired oven. "I already called the waitlist. A guy named Keith Xavier is coming with a friend. He sounded pretty excited about it." Olivia's hands stilled as she was chopping fresh thyme. "Keith Xavier, that name sounds familiar." Maya shrugged. "I think he's been here before. Anyway, he was super nice on the phone." Olivia couldn't quite place it, but something about the name stirred a memory. She pushed the thought aside and focused on the meal preparation. Tonight's menu featured everything they'd harvested that week: heirloom tomato gazpacho, roasted beet salad with her own goat cheese, grilled lamb with fresh herbs, and her grandmother's peach cobbler recipe made with peaches from the orchard. At precisely 6:30, cars began pulling into the gravel driveway. Olivia smoothed down her simple blue linen dress and retied her apron, tucking a strand of auburn hair back into her loose braid. She loved this part, greeting each guest personally as they arrived, watching their faces light up when they saw the transformed barn with its twinkling string lights and long communal table. "Olivia, this looks even more magical than last month," gushed a regular guest, pressing a bottle of wine into her hands. "Thank you, Mrs. Reynolds. Those tomatoes in your soup tonight came from the vines you helped me stake in the spring," Olivia replied with a genuine smile. The barn gradually filled with the pleasant hum of conversation. Olivia was pouring water into the last few glasses when a sleek black car pulled up. A tall man in dark jeans and a crisp white button-down emerged from the driver's side, and something about his confident stride seemed familiar. When he removed his sunglasses, recognition dawned. It was him, the quiet man who'd been attending her dinners sporadically over the past 6 months. He always made minimal conversation, ate everything with evident appreciation, left generous tips, and disappeared before she could really talk to him. His name had been on the tip of her tongue all evening: Keith Xavier. A second man exited the passenger side, younger, dressed more formally, clutching what looked like a leather portfolio. They spoke briefly before approaching the barn. "Olivia." Keith's voice was deep and warm as he extended his hand. "Thank you for accommodating us on such short notice. This is my assistant, Daniel." "Of course," Olivia replied, noticing for the first time how striking Keith's hazel eyes were. "I'm glad the waitlist worked out in your favor." "You've been here before, right?" "Several times." His smile was subtle but transformed his serious face. "Your dinners have become something of a monthly highlight for me." Olivia felt an unexpected flutter in her stomach. Well, I'm happy to have you back. Please find any open seats. We'll be starting with a toast in about 5 minutes. As she turned to finish her preparations, she couldn't help but steal another glance at Keith. There was something compelling about him, not just his obvious good looks, but a quiet intensity that made her curious. The dinner began with Olivia's traditional welcome speech, describing each dish and naming the specific plot of land where each ingredient had been grown. As she spoke, she noticed Keith watching her intently, his expression thoughtful. Unlike some guests who feigned interest in farming details, he seemed genuinely engaged. Throughout the evening, Olivia moved around the table, refilling glasses and ensuring everyone was enjoying themselves. When she reached Keith, he surprised her by asking, "The irrigation system you mentioned last month, did you get it installed?" She blinked, startled that he'd remembered such a detail. "Not yet. The quote came in way over budget, so I'm looking at alternatives." "I might know someone who specializes in sustainable irrigation," Keith offered. "I could pass along your information if you'd like." "That would be amazing," Olivia said, genuinely appreciative. "Water management is our biggest challenge here." As the evening progressed, Olivia found herself repeatedly drawn into conversation with Keith. Unlike her initial impression of him as reserved, he proved to be a thoughtful conversationalist with unexpected knowledge about organic farming practices. When he mentioned an article about soil regeneration that she'd just read, Olivia pulled up a chair during the dessert service. "How do you know so much about sustainable agriculture?" she asked, serving him a generous portion of peach cobbler. Keith's expression shifted slightly. "My company has some investments in the agricultural sector. Plus, I grew up on a farm in Montana." "Really? I never would have guessed," Olivia said, taking in his confident demeanor and what she now recognized as an expensive watch on his wrist. "Most people don't," he replied with a hint of something that might have been regret. "I left when I was 18 and didn't look back for a long time." Their conversation was interrupted by Maya signaling that it was time for the closing remarks. Reluctantly, Olivia stood and addressed her guests, thanking them for being part of her first-year milestone. As the evening wound down and guests began departing, Keith and his assistant lingered. Olivia was clearing the last of the plates when he approached her. "I have a rather unusual request," he said, his expression serious. "I'd like to book your entire next dinner for a private corporate event. My assistant has the details." He gestured to Daniel, who stepped forward with his portfolio. Olivia's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "That's quite a request. Your company must be something special to warrant a private farm dinner." A flicker of amusement crossed Keith's face. "Xavier Technologies. We're celebrating a product launch, and I thought this would be more memorable than a standard hotel banquet." Olivia nearly dropped the stack of plates she was holding. Xavier Technologies was one of the leading renewable energy companies in the country. She'd read about them in sustainability magazines and even used their solar panels on her barn roof. "You're that Xavier?" she asked, trying to keep her voice casual while her mind raced. Keith nodded, looking slightly uncomfortable. "I hope that's not a problem." "No, not at all," Olivia said quickly. "I'm just surprised. I've been serving dinner to a tech mogul for months without realizing it." "I prefer it that way," Keith admitted. "It's refreshing to be somewhere I'm just another guest appreciating good food." Olivia spent the next half hour discussing the details with Daniel, while Keith helped Maya carry chairs back to the storage, shed something she tried to protest, but which he insisted on doing. By the time they'd finalized the arrangements for the corporate event, the barn was nearly restored to order, and Keith was chatting with Maya about beekeeping techniques. "Your boss is full of surprises," Olivia commented to Daniel as they finished their planning. Daniel glanced over at Keith with what looked like genuine respect. "You have no idea. He's been talking about your dinners for months now. I think he's been looking for an excuse to bring the executive team here." When Keith and Daniel finally departed, Olivia and Maya collapsed onto the porch swing outside the farmhouse, exhausted but buzzing with excitement about the corporate booking. "So, Keith Xavier," Maya said with a knowing smile. "He couldn't take his eyes off you all night." Olivia felt her cheeks warm. "Don't be ridiculous. He's a successful CEO who happens to appreciate farm-to-table dining." "And farm-to-table dinner hosts with beautiful auburn hair," Maya teased. "He's a client now," Olivia reminded her friend. "A very important one." But as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling of her farmhouse bedroom, Olivia couldn't help replaying their conversations. There had been something there, a connection that went beyond polite dinner conversation. She'd felt it, and based on the way he'd looked at her when he thought she wasn't noticing, she suspected Keith had felt it too. The next morning, Olivia woke to an email from Xavier Technologies confirming the booking with a substantial deposit already transferred to her account. There was also a personal note from Keith. "Olivia, thank you for accommodating our request. I've taken the liberty of including contact information for Stefan Bergman, an irrigation specialist my company has worked with on several agricultural projects. He's expecting your call. Looking forward to the next harvest gathering." Keith. Olivia stared at the screen, torn between professional gratitude and an unsettling awareness that Keith Xavier was becoming more than just a dinner guest in her mind. The irrigation specialist turned out to be a godsend. Stefan visited the farm the following week, designed a system that cost half what she'd been quoted previously, and promised to have it installed before the next dinner. When Olivia tried to thank Keith via email, his response was simple: "I'm happy to connect good people doing good work. The real thanks will be seeing what you can grow with proper water management." As the date of the corporate dinner approached, Olivia found herself putting extra effort into every detail. She sourced special ingredients, experimented with new recipes, and even splurged on new linens for the table. Maya teased her mercilessly about her perfectionism. "You never fuss this much over the regular dinners," Maya observed as they tested a third variation on a summer squash soup. "This is different." "It's a corporate event," Olivia insisted, though she knew her motivation went beyond professional pride. The night of the Xavier Technologies dinner arrived with perfect weather-clear skies, a gentle breeze, and temperatures that allowed them to set up both inside and outside the barn. Olivia had hired extra staff for the evening and wore a new dress, a sage green linen that complemented her eyes. Keith arrived early, before any of his employees, dressed more formally than usual in tailored gray slacks and a blue shirt that made his hazel eyes appear more blue than green. "You've outdone yourself," he said, taking in the transformed space. The barn glowed with additional string lights, and the tables were arranged in a U-shape rather than the usual long communal setting. "I wanted to make sure it was special for your team," Olivia replied, suddenly feeling shy. "It's perfect," Keith assured her, then hesitated before adding, "Actually, I came early because I wanted to show you something before everyone arrives." Curious, Olivia followed him outside to his car. From the trunk, he withdrew a large rolled document. "I took the liberty of having our agricultural division draw up some plans for your farm. It's just ideas, things that might help maximize your growing capacity while maintaining sustainable practices." Olivia unrolled the papers on the hood of his car, her eyes widening as she studied the detailed schematics. "Keith, this is incredible. This must have taken your team weeks to prepare. I may have mentioned your operation to our head of agricultural sustainability," Keith admitted. "She was impressed with what you've accomplished and offered some suggestions." Olivia looked up from the plans to find Keith watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Why would you do this for me?" she asked softly. "Because I believe in what you're doing here," he answered, his voice equally soft. And because he was interrupted by the sound of cars approaching. "My team is early," he said with a trace of regret. "We should probably—" "Yes, of course," Olivia agreed quickly, carefully rolling up the plans. "We'll talk more about this later." The corporate dinner proceeded flawlessly. Keith's employees were engaged and appreciative, raving about the food and asking thoughtful questions about the farm. Olivia noticed that Keith commanded natural respect from his team. Without being overbearing a leadership style, she found refreshingly authentic. During the meal, he gave a brief speech about sustainability being at the core of their company's mission. Using harvest gatherings as an example of the kind of small-scale, high-impact sustainability initiatives they hoped to support with their technology. Olivia felt a swell of pride hearing her farm described that way. As the evening progressed, she caught Keith watching her several times. Each time their eyes met, neither looked away immediately, and Olivia felt a growing certainty that there was something developing between them that went well beyond professional admiration. After the last guest had departed and the cleanup crew was finishing in the kitchen, Keith found Olivia sitting on the porch steps of the farmhouse, gazing up at the stars. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the space beside her. Olivia nodded, suddenly acutely aware of how close they were sitting, shoulders almost touching. "Your team seems wonderful," she said, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. "They are, and they were impressed by you. Several asked if we could make this a regular event." Olivia turned to look at him. "Is that what you want?" Keith met her gaze directly. "What I want," he said carefully, "is to have dinner with you somewhere where you don't have to work, just the two of us." The directness of his statement sent a flutter through Olivia's chest. "Are you asking me on a date, Mr. Xavier?" "I am," he replied with a smile that transformed his normally serious features, "and I'm hoping very much that you'll say yes." Olivia pretended to consider. "I suppose I could be persuaded to let someone else cook for me for a change." Keith's smile widened. "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes," Olivia confirmed, returning his smile. Their first official date took place 3 days later at a small, upscale restaurant in the nearest city. Freed from her responsibilities as host, Olivia discovered new dimensions to Keith. He was funny in a dry, understated way, passionate about environmental innovation, and surprisingly vulnerable when he spoke about his childhood on a struggling farm in Montana. "My father refused to adapt," Keith explained as they shared a bottle of wine. "He was convinced that the old ways were best, even as our neighbors embraced new technologies and thrived while we barely survived." "Is that why you went into renewable energy?" Olivia asked, intrigued by this glimpse into what had shaped him. Keith nodded. "I wanted to create technologies that made sustainability accessible, not just for massive industrial farms, but for operations like yours, small, conscientious farmers who care about the land." "That's why you've been coming to my dinners," Olivia realized. "You were researching." A flash of discomfort crossed Keith's face. "Initially, yes. Xavier Technologies has been developing a small farm initiative, and I wanted to understand the real challenges facing independent farmers." He reached across the table to take her hand. "But after the first dinner, I kept coming back because of you. Your passion, your commitment, the way you've created something meaningful from scratch, I found myself looking forward to those evenings more than any business meeting or social event." Olivia felt her cheeks warm at his admission. "And here I thought you just liked my grandmother's peach cobbler." "Well, that too," Keith acknowledged with a smile. "But mostly it was the woman serving it. That night, standing beside her car in the restaurant parking lot, Keith kissed her for the first time. It was a gentle kiss that quickly deepened, leaving Olivia breathless and certain that whatever was happening between them was worth exploring. Over the next few weeks, their relationship blossomed. Keith attended her regular monthly dinner as a guest rather than a business connection, this time openly helping with setup and cleanup, much to the delight of Maya and the confusion of some regular attendees who recognized him from business magazines. Olivia learned that behind Keith's successful public persona was a man who worked tirelessly, but also valued personal connections. He made time for her despite running a major corporation, sometimes flying back early from business trips just to help her harvest vegetables or repair fencing. For her part, Olivia introduced Keith to the rhythms of farm life, the pre-dawn milking of her small herd of goats, the satisfaction of pulling carrots from rich soil, the peace that came with watching fireflies rise over the fields at dusk. She was surprised by how naturally he fit into her world, how capable his hands were with practical tasks, how quickly he adapted to the early mornings and physical labor. "You miss this," she observed one evening as they sat on her porch after a long day of canning tomatoes. "The farm life." Keith considered this, his arm draped comfortably around her shoulders. "I miss parts of it, the connection to the land, the tangible results of your labor." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "What I don't miss is the constant struggle, the fear that one bad season could mean losing everything." Olivia leaned into him, understanding completely. Her farm was profitable now, but it had been touch and go that first year. "I got lucky. My grandparents owned this land outright. Not everyone has that advantage." "It's not just luck," Keith said firmly. "You've made smart choices. You've innovated. That's why I think—" He stopped abruptly. "Think what?" Olivia prompted, curious about his hesitation. Keith seemed to measure his words carefully. "I think operations like yours are the future. Small, diversified farms with direct-to-consumer models." He kissed her again, more deeply this time. "But maybe we should talk business another time." As summer turned to fall, their relationship deepened. Keith began keeping clothes at Olivia's farmhouse, and she found herself with a drawer in his sleek downtown apartment. They fell into an easy rhythm, with Keith working from the farm several days a week, and Olivia occasionally accompanying him to business events in the city. It was at one such event, a sustainable agriculture conference where Keith was the keynote speaker, that Olivia first understood the full extent of his vision. His speech outlined a new initiative from Xavier Technologies, a program to provide sustainable technology packages to small farms at subsidized rates, with flexible payment plans tied to farm income. "The future of food security doesn't lie solely with industrial agriculture," Keith told the audience. "It lies with thousands of small, adaptive, community-centered farms using technology appropriately scaled to their operations." After the presentation, as they mingled with attendees at the reception, Olivia overheard a conversation between Keith and a potential investor. "This small farm initiative is a departure for Xavier Technologies," the investor commented. "What inspired the shift?" Keith's response made Olivia pause mid-conversation with another attendee. "I met someone who showed me what's possible when passion meets practicality. Her farm produces more food per acre than operations 10 times its size, while building soil health and strengthening community connections." Later that night, in the privacy of Keith's apartment, Olivia confronted him. "That farm you mentioned in your conversation with the investor, were you talking about mine?" Keith looked slightly embarrassed. "Yes. But I hope you know I would never use specific details about your operation without permission." "I'm not worried about that," Olivia assured him. "I'm just trying to understand. You're building a multi-million-dollar initiative based on my little farm?" "Not based on," Keith corrected gently. "Inspired by. What you've created at Harvest Farm isn't just a business, it's a model for agricultural resilience. You've shown me that my childhood dream wasn't wrong, just ahead of its time." Olivia sat beside him on the couch, processing his words. "What was your childhood dream?" "To save our family farm," Keith admitted. "To find a way for small farms to thrive in a system designed for industrial agriculture." He took her hand. "When my father refused to consider new methods, I left, determined to create the technologies that might have saved us. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of the original goal, until I met you." The intensity in his eyes made Olivia's heart race. "Keith, I love you, Olivia," he said simply. "You've reminded me why I started down this path in the first place." Olivia felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. "I love you too," she whispered, realizing as she said it how completely true it was. Their kiss was tender at first, then increasingly passionate. That night marked a turning point in their relationship, a deeper level of commitment that both recognized without needing to define it explicitly. As harvest season reached its peak, Olivia found herself overwhelmed with work. The irrigation system had indeed increased her yields, and she was struggling to keep up with the bounty. Keith, despite his own busy schedule, spent every available moment helping her preserve and process the excess. "We need to expand your processing capacity," he observed one evening as they finished canning their 20th batch of applesauce. "And hire more help." Olivia sighed, massaging her lower back. "The finances don't justify it yet. Maybe next year if the dinner series continues to grow." Keith was quiet for a moment, then said carefully, "What if you had a partner? Someone to invest in expanding the infrastructure while you focus on what you do best, growing exceptional food and creating experiences around it." Olivia stilled, suddenly understanding what he was suggesting. "A business partner, you mean?" "That's one option," Keith acknowledged, "but I was thinking of a more personal partnership." Olivia's heart began to race as Keith reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. He didn't go down on one knee. They were both covered in apple juice and exhausted, but the love in his eyes as he opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant emerald ring made formality unnecessary. "Olivia Mitchell, you've changed how I see the world and reminded me of what matters most. I want to build a life with you here on this land, creating a model for what sustainable farming can be." His voice grew husky with emotion. "Will you marry me?" Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes," she managed through the tightness in her throat. "Yes, I will." The ring slid perfectly onto her finger, and then Keith was kissing her, both of them laughing and crying at once. In the days that followed, they began to plan both their wedding and the future of the farm. Keith's vision included expanded growing areas, a commercial kitchen for value-added products, and an educational component to share their methods with other small farmers. "Are you sure you want this?" Olivia asked one evening as they reviewed architectural plans for the expanded barn. "You've built a life in the city. Running a corporation is quite different from farming." Keith set the plans aside and took both her hands in his. "What I've realized is that I don't want to just fund agricultural innovation, I want to be part of it. Xavier Technologies will continue, but with a more distributed leadership model that doesn't require me to be in an office every day." His certainty reassured her, and over the next few months, their shared vision began to take shape. They were married in the spring, a simple ceremony in the apple orchard with blooms showering down around them as they exchanged vows. Maya was Olivia's maid of honor, and Daniel stood beside Keith as his best man. Their honeymoon was a working trip to visit innovative small farms across Europe, gathering ideas and making connections that would inform their own operation. By the time they returned, the expansion of the farm was well underway. The monthly dinner series evolved into a weekly event, with Olivia still handling the menus and hosting while a small staff managed the increased workload. Keith's technological expertise transformed the farm's efficiency, allowing them to triple production while actually reducing water usage and improving soil health. A year after their wedding, as they celebrated the 3rd anniversary of harvest gatherings, Olivia looked around at the crowded barn now expanded to accommodate 40 guests and felt a surge of gratitude. The farm had become exactly what she'd hoped for, a thriving example of sustainable agriculture and a gathering place for the community. "Happy?" Keith asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist, his hands resting gently on the small swell of her belly where their child was growing. "Beyond happy," Olivia replied, leaning back against him. "When I started this, I never imagined I'd find a partner who shared my vision so completely." Keith pressed a kiss to her temple. "And I never imagined that accepting a last-minute dinner reservation would change my life forever." As they moved among their guests that evening, sharing the news of their expected child and unveiling plans for a farm education center to open the following year, Olivia marveled at how a series of chance encounters had led to this moment. The tech millionaire and the farm-to-table host had found in each other not just love, but a shared purpose that was bearing fruit in ways neither could have predicted. Later that night, as they sat on their porch swing watching fireflies rise over the fields, Olivia rested her head on Keith's shoulder. "Do you ever miss your old life?" The excitement of running a major corporation, the influence, the "not for a second," Keith interrupted, his arm tightening around her. "Everything I've ever wanted is right here." And as the stars emerged above their flourishing farm, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that she felt exactly the same way.